We're back with another episode of App Stories. This episode is brought to you by Collide, Memberful, and Pillow. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Viticci. Hi, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
Doing great. I'm doing great today. You know what? We've had a lot of apps on our plate lately. We've covered an awful lot of them on the site. We've covered even more of them with Club Mac Stories members, but we've still got more. So we've decided we're going to do another app grab bag, basically, and kind of clear the decks and talk about some more of these apps that we've been using and things that we like that we haven't had a chance to really go into in any detail anywhere else.
Okay. I like this idea after our work called App Stories.
Yes,
and we're just before episode 300, so it's only fair that we do some more apps before the big one. So let's talk about these apps, because I also have some that I want to cover. I see that the first one in our list is Marvis, the excellent Apple Music client. Have you been playing around with it?
A little bit. I think you probably have played with some of these new features more than I have. I've been listening to a lot of music lately, but having covered all these other apps, I haven't dug into Marvis as much as I would have liked. But I do find them intriguing because I guess the main new features are tied to metadata and how that is displayed in the app, and also smart filters, which there are a bunch of new ones, right?
Yeah, the thing about that's so impressive about Marvis now is that you have full control over the now playing screen.
Right.
So the full screen player you can now entirely control by deciding what kind of items you want to put in there. And these items are the lines of text that you see underneath the progress bar. So in between the progress bar and the playback controls, you have all these different lines of text, and you can decide which metadata items you want to put in there. So for example, by default, there's the song title at the very top of this block of text, right? Because you want to see the name of the song, and that's big and bold. But underneath that, for example, I put the artist name, and then I decided to have the album name. And then on the fourth line of text, I put in the release year so that I can see when a song that I'm listening to actually came out, in which year it came out.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And the last time I listened to that song. So, for example, now there's this song open in Marvis, and it says 2022 because it's a new album 4 days ago, right? So all this, and you can totally customize the kind of items that you see in here. You just need to open settings, and you go into the player, and then you go into the full player displayed metadata. And it's so impressive because you have title and subtitle, and then you have these additional rows that you can customize. And even more impressive is that you can group these items together. So you can group multiple items on the same row together, and you can give them a custom SF symbol. So, for example, the dates that I have on my fourth row, the year and the 4 days ago, because both are dates, I figured I'm going to group these together in the Marvis settings. Mm-hmm. And when you group them together, they sit on the same row, but you can also give both a custom icon. So I picked a calendar icon from the SF symbols collection that is totally open to use inside Marvis. And now, when I open my full screen player, the SF symbol, a nice little calendar, is at the very beginning of this row of text.
Oh, that's nice.
And you can do this basically you can go on as much as you want. You can add multiple rows. You can add even more items. You can and you can get really into this to the point where, for example, when you choose a symbol, you can choose to have it flipped horizontally. You can choose the size. You can choose the weight. You can choose the rendering mode. These are the settings that usually developers have. So you can choose to have monochrome or automatic or multicolor. And if you choose monochrome, you can choose the appearance, or you can choose another accent color. Like, you can do whatever you want with these metadata items. And even better, and I mean, we're not get to this in a moment, but you can have these metadata items appear based on certain conditions. But
Right.
like all these new metadata customization features in Marvis are incredible, and you can kind of get lost in them, which is what I did for a few nights in a row. I just basically put on some music and started tweaking things until I was tired. But it's truly remarkable what you can do in terms of like, I want to see, I don't know, I want to see the name of the composer in the now playing screen. You can do that. It's incredible.
Could you share these two? I know that there's some new sharing features here. Maybe I'm.
Can you?
I don't remember. Maybe not. Maybe not. There's some
you can share settings.
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Interesting. Well, I would really encourage as many developers as possible to use SF symbols and to make as many of them as available as possible. Because if you include a search field, you never know what symbol they're going to pick to represent something. And I've really appreciated having those available in things like task managers and note taking, anything where you might want to kind of abbreviate an idea or create a category based on a symbol. It really comes in handy, even in a music app like this, which I think is a good example of a use that you wouldn't necessarily think of. Another Marvis feature that I really like that's not quite as new as some of these other ones is the mini player. The fact that when you can have the now playing screen be full screen, or you can swipe it down and then it's just a bar along the bottom, but it does cover up some of the UI. So if you want, you can swipe it to the right and then it's just a teeny tiny little album art thumbnail in the corner of the screen, which is really kind of neat.
Yeah, you can also customize which items you see in the mini player. So you can now, for example, I made my mini player a dark color. So it's in contrast with the white background that I use in Marvis. And I also decided to show the audio quality of the song I'm listening to right next to the artist name. So you can fully control what you can do on the mini player. Now it also supports swipe gestures. So you can, for example, I have a swipe gesture associated with opening the current song in Apple Music. So now I can just swipe right on the mini player and it opens Apple Music. Another incredible feature that Marvis recently got, which I hinted a couple of minutes ago, is the ability to show certain things based on conditions. And the easiest way to think about this is you can show, for example, custom sections in the main home screen of Marvis based on filters. So, to give you an example, I created this collection called Night Albums, which are basically albums that I like to listen to before I fall asleep, right? And this is a section that I created by effectively creating a filter that says, look in my library for albums that are named like this. So there's an album by Dead Cat for Cutie, another by John Mayer. Like I just searched for the names of specific albums. And so it loads 7 or 8 albums in that collection. But I was thinking, like, I don't want to see these albums during the day when I'm just opening Marvis to listen to other types of music. I just want to see this at night. Now you can do this. In Marvis, you can create a section and then you can give the section a filter. In the rules screen, you can say, only show this to me, only show this content if, for example, the filter I created is current date is after midnight, but it's before 6:30 a.m. So when it's night and before I'm going to bed, I will see this section. And the reason this is smart is you create this filter and then you go to the very bottom of Marvis when there's the manage button to choose which sections you want to see.
Right.
And there's a toggle that is called show empty sections. If you disable that toggle and you create a section like I did, what will happen is Marvis will say, okay, I see there's a section called Night Albums, but because it's not between midnight and 6:30 a.m., it's, I don't know, 3 p.m. now,
Right.
This section should be empty. And this is like a cascading set of settings. Therefore, if this section is empty, that toggle comes into play and says, well, but I am configured to hide this section when it's empty. And that's why when I open Marvis during the day, I don't see the night albums section, but when it's night, like when it's 1 a.m., I will see it right at the top of my Marvis home screen.
That's nice. I actually did. I turned that so that they would hide the empty sections too, because I have one called Revisit, which we've talked about on the show before, which is basically songs in the past year that I've loved but haven't played more than, I forget if I picked like 3 or 4 times, something like that. And so it'll populate over the course of time as I'm discovering new music. But if I go into that list and start listening to it again, eventually that list gets smaller because I've played those songs more often. And eventually it'll be empty. And I have run into the situation in the past where it was just an empty list. And it's nice to be able to hide those empty ones.
This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Collide. Traditional endpoint security tools can make your workplace feel like a surveillance state, turning users and IT teams into adversaries and ultimately driving employees to work on unsecure personal devices. It doesn't have to be that way. Collide is a device security solution built around honest security. Their philosophy is that employees aren't the biggest security risk, they're your biggest allies, and your relationship with them should be based on transparency and informed consent. Collide works by notifying your employees of security issues via Slack and gives them step-by-step instructions on how to resolve them themselves. For IT and security teams, Collide provides the right level of visibility for Mac, Windows, and Linux devices, and it can answer questions about your fleet's security that traditional MDMs can't. You can meet your security goals without compromising your values. Visit collide.com/appstories to find out how. If you follow that link, they'll hook you up with a goodie bag just for activating a free trial. That's KOLIDE.com/appstories. Our thanks to Collide for their support of the show.
All right, Federico, we haven't talked about Obsidian in a very long time. And I want to talk about it because it has gotten a very big feature on both mobile and the desktop now, which is tabs. And I guess you and I very early in the year did a series on Obsidian when we were both exploring it quite deeply in a lot of the community plugins. And I have added plugins in the time since then, but I think my use of Obsidian has settled down to be more of a text editor than a note-taking app.
Okay.
I do take notes, like, and I'll give you an example when I get to the tabs, but I do take notes in it. But I'm not, I guess maybe it's not that I'm not a note taker. It's more that I'm not a heavy linker of one note to another. I'm not a PKM person, I guess is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
I write articles and my articles don't really link out to other articles, right? And sometimes I'll do some notes and they may link out to another set of notes or they may link to an article that I'm writing, but it's pretty rare. And I kind of felt bad about that at first because that seemed like the whole idea behind Obsidian. But Obsidian's kind of grown into something that really is what you make of it and the plugins that you use. And for me, the plugins that have stuck the longest are the ones that just help me get my everyday writing done. But what's really changed and made it even more powerful for me, that more than any single thing since the beginning of the year and since I started using it, are these tabs. Because you can, I think we've talked before that with Obsidian, you can split your panes. So you can have two documents open in the same window side by side, which is nice. It's powerful. But it's not nearly as powerful as being able to open multiple tabs. And now with this update, not only can you have tabs that are different documents, but you can split the pane and have different tabs open in each pane, which is a little bonkers, but it works super well. Because what I'll do, probably one of the things where I find this the most handy is that when I'm working on app stories and I'm creating the show notes from a template, I also am ultimately going to create an article that goes into Calliope, our CMS, and also a link post that goes on Mac Stories. So what I'll do is I'll split the panes and I'll have the show notes on the left which are just kind of the details about everything about the show, the episode. And on the right, I'll have another pane with 2 tabs. One is what's going into the CMS, and the other one into Calliope for the club, and the other one is what's going on to Mac Stories as a link post. And then I can very easily move things back and forth between them as I need, and it really helps me move a lot faster. I don't do the split pane plus tabs very often, but it does come in handy in that kind of circumstance. Or, for instance, when you have a set of research notes and you want to have that in one pane to look at while you're writing in the other pane. That's another good use case. Typically, though, I'll have several panes open at once at any one time during a week. I typically keep a set of notes for every week where on Monday I'll just it's just things that come up that I need to jot down, and sometimes it's a short list of tasks that I absolutely need to get done. It can be all kinds of things, but it's really just a scratch pad for the week more than anything else. I'll stash links there and other things. And so that'll usually be a tab that I return to on and off throughout the day. And then my other tabs will end up being things that I'm working on, whether it's, an article for the site or show notes for a podcast or whatever it happens to be. But it's really having that all in one place and being able to create a document that, for instance, I might write the sponsor post on a Thursday and not need to post it until Monday. I can just leave that tab open and then return to it later on Monday when I'm ready to publish. I don't have to go searching for things because there's enough space that I can keep those tabs open until I'm finished with them and then close them as I go.
Very interesting. I haven't played with Obsidian and the new tab feature much, but I haven't spent a lot of time with it. I've mostly been busy with shortcuts lately. Really.
Yeah, well, it hasn't been on mobile very long, right? Mm-hmm. It's only been on it for a little while. And so I suppose that's true. It's very much it's very powerful on a big screen, like my 27-inch studio display.
Right, I can imagine that. But I can relate to your point about sort of discovering that you're not a linker when it comes to note-taking. Like, you're not the type of person who buys into the PKM style, Zettelkasten thing of let me create a bunch of standalone notes and let me link them all together. I understand why that's very beneficial for a lot of people, but this is something that I've also realized over the past few months, and that I think I've come to terms with lately, really. Just personally, the way that I like to use my note-taking app, there's some things that are supposed to be their own notes, right? But also I'm the type of person who just likes having a single note and throw everything in it. Like, I like having my dashboard for things on my mind. I like having my scratch pad where I drop random bits of text, sort of like a clipboard manager, but it's not really a clipboard manager. And then I like to have, a note that I share with Sylvia about design stuff. I understand why people really like to break this down into much, much smaller components. But I also think that methodology, maybe it works well in an academic context, you have these different concepts, these different ideas. You need to break them up in smaller chunks, and then you can link them all together, and you can come up with this visualization that shows you the connections between these ideas. But the thing is, I'm not a scientist. I'm not an academic. I'm just a guy who takes notes. And
yeah, me too.
At some point, I think you wrote about this in the past, John. When the system becomes more important than the actual work you're doing, then maybe you have a problem, and maybe you don't necessarily need to use that system.
Yeah. And the other thing for me is I feel like a lot of my notes really are just disposable. Like, if I've finished writing a review of an app, why do I want to keep all these notes about, Carrot Weather 5.2 or whatever? I mean, Carrot Weather is going to move on, and if I wrote the article and it's on the site and I can find what I wrote again if I need it. I don't need the notes anymore. So a lot of that stuff just gets deleted, and I've never found a reason to go back to notes about old versions of apps and things like that. And maybe that's in part the kind of work we do, but these notes don't really have a very long shelf life as far as I'm concerned. Mm-hmm. The other thing worth mentioning about the tabs is that they are stackable, which I don't do. I mean, what stackable tabs means is that, normally the tabs that I'm working in are typically like you would find in any Mac app where you can open multiple documents in tabs, and they're, arrayed horizontally at the top of the window, and you can click from one to the other. What stackable does is it turns that 90 degrees so that they're vertical, and they stack up on the left. And you can, I don't know if there are settings to change which way they stack. Maybe there are. But in any event, you slide them back and forth. And it's kind of almost like it's almost like sliding glass doors that are moving left and right. And you can see more than one of the sets of notes at one time. And I don't know, I just don't find that an efficient way to use my notes. So I haven't really done it. I've turned it on and off a couple of times just to see what it would look like. But it just doesn't work for me.
This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Memberful, the easiest way to sell memberships to your audience, used by the biggest creators on the web. Memberful handles the hard stuff so you can focus on what you do best while earning revenue quickly. If you're looking to add membership to your existing business, you want a solution that works with your existing technology so you can launch a new revenue stream without rebuilding your entire stack. That's exactly what we did at Mac Stories with Club Mac Stories years ago now. We've been working with Memberful ever since, and it's been a fantastic experience. Memberful seamlessly integrates with the tools that you already use, things like WordPress, MailChimp, Discord, and a whole lot more. We, in particular, use it with MailChimp and Discord. MailChimp for our newsletters and Discord for our Club Mac Stories Plus community. The integration with Memberful makes it easy to add those kinds of things and to manage your entire membership. Memberful maintains a full-featured GraphQL API, webhooks, and OAuth single sign-on to make it easy to integrate seamlessly with any stack. It also maintains a best-in-class WordPress plugin to add membership and content restrictions to your website. You can use a custom domain name so everything is fully branded under your name, and it connects directly with Stripe for secure payments, something which we do too. Memberful has all you need to run a membership program, including custom branding, gift subscriptions, Apple Pay, free and paid trials, private podcasts, in-house newsletters, referrals, and a lot more. Get started today for free with no credit card required. Just go to memberful.com/appstories to see how you can integrate membership into your existing business. Again, that URL is memberful.com/appstories so that they know you came from the show. Our thanks to Memberful for their support of App Stories.
Okay.
Runestone by Simon Storing.
Ah, yes.
I decided to, I've done a bunch of tests, and I decided this is going to be my text editor for all things sort of code related, or like whenever I have some plain text that I need to deal with, I'm going to use Runestone. Runestone is on the iPhone and iPad, very modern and polished and powerful text editor that uses the Files document browser to let you open and save anything you want that can be considered a text file in a bunch of different formats. So plain text, Markdown, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Python, you name it. And it's so modern because it uses the native Files APIs, and it works with iCloud Drive, and it uses the document browser as its main screen for picking documents. So anything you can do in Files, meaning tagging, renaming, the context menus, all of those you get for free in Runestone because it uses Files as its default view. But what I love about Runestone is there's a couple of things that I want to mention. First, I like all the customization options when it comes to themes, fonts, font sizes, all that. Like, you can really fine tune what the editor looks like, which I appreciate. There's some premium features that I want to call out. Line numbers, for example, with the ability to highlight the current line. I believe it's part of the premium stuff. You can also create, make your own themes, have custom icons. There's going to be like an option to show spaces, tabs, and line breaks. You can tweak all other kinds of parameters like line height and all those type of things. Like you get a bunch of additional options and settings and themes and icons with the premium subscription, which I unlocked. What I really like is how well it performs with giant text files, which is not something that a lot of apps get right. So just this week, I spent some time, and hopefully by the time this episode goes out, I figured out how to do this. But I basically spent the past few days building a shortcut that scrapes twitter.com and more specifically individual tweets to extract text and images out of tweets. And doing that involved using JavaScript to turn a tweet as viewed on twitter.com into the HTML source code and then scraping that source code using regular expressions in shortcuts. But to understand the structure of that source code, I dropped the giant block of text. And by giant, I mean, let's see, what's the file size of this document? Just to give you some context. Let's see, get info. So a tweet as saved as a text file, right? It's 345 kilobytes. So that's pretty heavy for a text file. Like my iOS review is in the ballpark of that. Text is not heavy. So when you see 100 kilobytes, it's usually, pretty heavy text file. And most apps would choke on a text file like this. And instead in Runestone, like scrolling is incredibly smooth, even for a text file of this size. And the find and replace has been excellent for me. Because like, as I mentioned, whenever you need to do any kind of web scraping, you need to confirm the structure, right, of the page. And then you need to build regular expression that's hard-coded to extract information from a specific part of the page. Meaning you need to essentially look at the skeleton of the page around the content you want to extract, and then write a regular expression that targets that part specifically of the document. And in Runestone, I was able to just so quickly find the part of the tweet, for example, where my actual text of the tweet was. Mm-hmm. And even with hundreds of thousands of characters, search was incredibly fast. And I really like how, for example, when you have multiple search results, you can swipe up on this floating search box that you have on the iPhone, and this is so incredibly well done because it's like a screen pops up from the search box as you swipe up on it, and it shows you all the matches for your query in the document. The animation is really well done. And, of course, you have options for case sensitivity, whether your query should find lines that end with a character or begin with a character. You can use regular expressions, of course, and you can have a replace mode as well. So you can find and replace all. It's a really well done text editor. You can format your document. You can choose it uses the new document menu in iOS 16. So when you tap on the title bar, you get a little preview of the document thumbnail. You get your text size. There's a share button. But this is I really like how Simon was able to customize the document menu. So you have additional options for changing the language of the document or changing the text encoding, for example. So if for whatever reason you don't want to use UTF-8 as your default encoding for a document, be my guest. You can go to ASCII or you can use UTF-16 or God forbid, macOS Roman, if you want to use that. So if you're the type of person who was looking for a really good text editor, primarily aimed at code, I guess. I mean, you can write in Markdown in Runestone if you want, right. But that's not how I'm going to use it. Although it makes for an excellent text editor to make quick edits to, for example, Markdown documents that you may keep in working copy. You can just open in place, edit, save, and you're done. So, incredible text editor, super modern. Go support Simon, great developer, and I do love the new default icon of Runestone as well. So, yeah, I really like this one.
Yeah, no, that icon's great, and the app is as well.
This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Pillow. More and more studies show that getting a good night's sleep can help improve your health and overall well-being. Pillow is a simple app that helps you become more aware of your sleep patterns and make informed decisions that will help you improve your sleep quality. All you have to do is wear your Apple Watch when you go to sleep. Pillow takes care of the rest, tracking and analyzing your sleep automatically. If you want to use Pillow with just an iPhone or an iPad, you can do that too, with the press of a button before going to bed. And if you have an Apple Watch, you can also get important information about your heart rate trends, variability, heart rate dip, and blood oxygen levels for each sleep session. You can even record sounds that occur during the night, things like sleep talking, sleep apnea, snoring, and other noises that might be interrupting your sleep. If your Apple Watch is a Series 6 or newer, Pillow will also display information about the intensities of those sounds and give you a rating of every exposure. Another valuable aspect of Pillow is helping you make informed decisions about your sleep. Pillow has a dedicated section where you can discover trends, get personalized insights, sleep tips, and compare your sleep metrics with your weight, steps, caffeine consumption, and other health metrics. If you want to wind down and relax before going to bed by listening to something, or listen to something throughout the night, Pillow comes with an expanding collection of sleep aid sounds, guided meditations, bedtime stories, and music produced specifically for sleep. You can even use Pillow's Power Nap mode, which can help boost your creativity and focus. Pillow will also wake you up at the lightest possible sleep stage using your iPhone, Apple Watch, or iPad. And starting with watchOS 6, Pillow's battery consumption is minimal too. Last but not least, Pillow is very privacy-minded. All of your sleep and audio data is encrypted and stored on your device and in your iCloud storage account using end-to-end encryption. You don't need to register for an account or sign up to use Pillow. You can use it anonymously, and it doesn't collect or send your personal data anywhere else. Pillow is free to download from the App Store and comes with a set of great features that you can use every day for free. If you want to try Pillow's premium features, there's also an option to start a 7-day free trial. Just go to pillow.app to get started today. Again, that URL is pillow.app. Our thanks to Pillow for their support of the show.
Federico, I want to talk to you about Apple Watch Ultra action button apps. How's that for a mouthful?
Very specific. Go
very, very specific.
This is quite the market you've nailed down.
I really have. This goes back to my big reveal last episode during the App Stories Plus episode that I have had an Apple Watch Ultra for the last week and a half, and I had kept it from you and really everyone, and revealed that on the show and talked a little bit about it. And you can listen to it by subscribing at appstories.plus.
Good job. Well done.
You like that? That's our extended ad-free version of the show that's delivered early every week. So I've been keeping an eye on apps that take advantage of the Apple Watch Ultra, and there aren't a lot of them yet. But I do want to mention this because I think there's some confusion as to how the action button works with third-party apps. Because I was listening not long ago to the Vergecast, which is quite a good podcast, and there are a lot of good writers at the Verge, but they seem to be a little confused as to how third-party apps work with the action button, because there is an option in the things that the action button can do called app. You can do shortcuts, you can do a bunch of different things with the action button. There are all these presets, but one of them is app. And if you just have an Apple Watch Ultra out of the box, you open up that app section, and all you'll see is workouts, because that's the Apple app that actually works with it. But third-party apps do too if they're created to work with the action button. And the one that I would call out for this episode is Footpath. And Footpath is an app that I've written about for the club before. It's been around for quite a long time. I'm fairly new to the app though, but it has both a free and a subscription version, but it lets you trace out paths with your finger on a map. And then it snaps the path to things like trails or streets or whatever it happens to be. And it's great for, running or walking or biking, all sorts of activities. If you want to get a route and you want to see how far it is, and you want to get turn-by-turn directions, for instance. And the latest update to that app adds action button support, where it can be used to pause or resume a footpath workout, to show you the map, because it has a whole bunch of different versions of maps, topographical maps, street maps, satellite maps, all kinds of things, depending on whether you subscribe or not. But show the map or speak the next turn. So it does, it can do audio cues with headphones and tell you where to turn. And when you pick one of those three things to assign to the action button, but then you go into the Apple Watch's settings to the action button settings and this app option, and you pick footpath. And that's where whatever you picked in the footpath settings will then be enabled with the action button. So that's how it works. The other apps that I've seen that also support the action button and support the Apple Watch Ultra in general that I have not used myself are an app called Volo for kite surfing, which looks like a very nice app.
Do you kite surf? Have you ever
do not
kite surf?
I have never kite surfed in my life. And so I can't really speak to the quality of the app so much as its design. And its design is quite nice. And then another one, which I understand is a popular rock climbing app called Red Point. Also, I have rock climbed in the past, Federico, but not in recent years.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
I've done a little bit of that. Indoors, some of it, like on a fake wall. But in any event, those are three apps that are already out there, and there'll probably be more in the future.
Well, thank you for your research. So how are you using it now? Like, what does it look like on your Apple Watch?
So I am using the Footpath one. That's an app that I've been using more and more often because, since I moved to a new place, I don't really know this area super well. So I've been picking out.
Okay, makes sense.
I've been like, I'll sit with the iPhone version of the app, and I'll trace out a map, a route, and figure out, oh, well, that's 2 miles or that's 3 miles, whatever it is, so that I'm not like going out and overdoing it or whatever, or just getting a sense for what I can do in these different roads around here and trails and things. So yeah, I've been using it for that kind of thing so far, and I haven't used it yet with the Apple Watch, but I'm planning to do it this week. This just got updated like at the end of last week, so. Time for me to get out there, I guess.
I'm just curious to see if you're going to keep using Footpath for a long time, or maybe you're going to consider having a shortcut associated with the action button or not.
Yeah, I think I'll probably use it for workouts more than anything else. I think that is a good use case for it. I mean, because the thing about the action button is it's easy to press. And if you're exercising and you're moving around or you're sweaty or whatever it happens to be, having a button to press to start and stop things is a lot easier than swiping around on a screen. And when I'm working out, I'm not running shortcuts. So, yeah. and I've never been an Apple Watch shortcut person. I've always found them to be a little slow on the Apple Watch and not super reliable. So, maybe that'll change, and maybe I'm going to give it another shot, but I expect I'm going to stick with some form of workouts for the action button, whether it's Apple's workout app, which I've used for quite a while, or something new like Footpath.
All right. Very well. So I should be getting my iPhone 14 Pro pretty soon, I hope.
Oh, nice.
And I've been keeping an eye on this one, but please explain everything about this to me. Halide and the latest update for the 48 megapixel camera on the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max. How does it work? Should I use it? Should I care about this or not?
Well, I think it's worth giving it a shot, because I think that with the combination of lock screen widgets and some of the things that the app can do with the new lenses and sensor that can't be done as easily with Apple's camera app, that it's worth taking another look at. We talked a couple of weeks ago, I guess, about this app when we talked about lock screen widgets, and we talked about how you can set up different halide lock screen widgets to do things like open it up in manual or autofocus, or open up a particular lens. And so that's really nice that if you have, maybe you have a lock screen that you like to use on the weekend when you're out for a walk and you're going to take pictures of your dog or something. Very easy to get into the app now from the lock screen in a way that has never been possible before, except with the Apple camera app. So that's really nice. And it makes these different lenses a lot more accessible for users. The other thing, though, that they've got is you can take ProRAW photos in both 48 megapixel or 12 megapixel versions, and you can take 48 megapixel hike and JPEG files. So those will be a lot smaller, and it'll be a lot faster to take the pictures, and you're going to get a lot more resolution out of the camera as well. So I think that, to me, the reason to use this app now is to experiment with high resolution JPEGs or hike files, or to see what ProRAW can do for you without having to kind of go deep into the settings in the camera app and stuff like that. So that's why I'm going to start using it. I've done a little bit of it. I was out last weekend, out for a walk, and did this very thing. I mean, I had the lenses and lock screen widgets, and then I took a variety of pictures, and I would take the same picture with a couple of different lenses just to see what the size was and to see how they looked. And it's probably not what you want to use day to day, like when you're just firing off a quick picture because your dog's doing something cute at the moment. But if you're going to go out for a while and maybe you kind of expect you'll take a bunch of pictures, it's a nice option to have, especially, as I said, being able to get to it from the lock screen.
All right. Well, I think I'm going to give it a shot then, especially with the widget launcher that you mentioned.
Yeah, I think that's really nice.
Yeah, I've always resisted these third-party camera apps because it's usually so inconvenient to open them, right? And I keep forgetting about doing that. But with the widget launcher that's right there on the lock screen, I think I'm going to give it a go. Whenever I see these comparisons of what you get out of the 48 megapixel RAW shooting mode instead of the regular 12, even with the quad pixel stuff, like the detail that you can retain out of that shooting mode is incredible. It looks incredible. However, I do not have any experience whatsoever making a RAW photo look good, so that's going to be an interesting experiment for me.
Well, they've got plenty of tools to deal with that, so you can learn a new tool too. I say you should try Lightroom. That's where I would start. That's probably the easiest one to learn, I think. Lightroom for iPad. Go for it.
All right, will do.
Federico, I have one last very small one to mention. It's not a small app. It's an important app, but it's a small feature, which is there's a lock screen widget for Just Press Record. And, Just Press Record has been around for a very long time. And the whole idea is to just press record, to quickly make an audio recording with your iPhone. And with a lock screen widget, this makes a ton of sense, just in the same way that it does for third-party camera apps. The ability to just tap a button on your screen and start recording is fantastic. And of course, the app can do things like convert your voice recorded audio into text and things and save it on your iPhone and then export the text and things like that. But it's that access and that speed of use that really makes a big difference. So that's another one that I think people might want to try for in those circumstances where it's hard to, get to a keyboard and actually start thumb typing.
Yeah, excellent utility. It's been around for a few years now, and I really like this idea. See, there's so many different apps that I keep bumping into this problem of I want to put that widget on my lock screen now. But then I look at my lock screen and I'm like, well, no, but what about these widgets?
You need to make a lot of home screens.
Yeah,
or a lot of lock screens, I should say.
No, I really don't want to do that.
I know. They multiply quickly, and then I've got 5 or 6 probably.
Did you see that it was discovered that there's a hard limit of 200 lock screens that you can have?
No, I didn't.
Yes. I think 9to5Mac did the research, and they discovered that the hard limit is 200 lock screens.
They had some person sit down and just make lock screen after lock screen.
John, look, you can go ahead and use all the widgets you want for up to 200 lock screens. Go for it.
Yeah, I can, and then I can just memorize where each one of those screens is.
Keep the recommendations coming, because we can create...
This one's in slot 56. Just swipe, 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 swipe. Yeah, that'll work really well. 200, my goodness, that's incredible. Yeah. All right, well, that's a good place to stop, Federico. I want to thank our 3 sponsors again for this episode. That's Collide, Memberful, and Pillow. You can find me and Federico over at macstories.net. Federico is on Twitter and Instagram, where he's at Fetici. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees, JOHNVOORHEES. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.